talked about them. It was, I was like confusing myself trying to read these. I mean, I'm all about, keeping.
Calling the Policy Committee meeting to order. Ms. Kadetsky, could you please call the roll?
Miss Melissa Mason,
Here.
Miss Pat Bradford,
I am here.
Miss Stephanie Craybill.
Here. All right, let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to make a motion to approve the agenda.
I will second that, and I have discussion.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Bradford.
Number 4, policy updates, A, 3200, selection of instructional materials, and 7300, staff responsibilities. I move that we combine those where it's A-B.
You're on the
We're
wrong
talking about
thing.
agenda.
We're on agenda.
Agenda, sorry.
Not minutes.
Sorry.
Not yet.
No, okay, then I'm good.
Okay, so I do have, oops, wrong one. I do have a couple items that I would like to add to the agenda. One is I would like to have a brief discussion, 5 minutes, to talk about some of our policy committee protocol, specifically policy 2610, board attorney requirements, and policy 2410, policy development and adoption. And basically, board attorney, what I want us to get I want us all to discuss out loud, notifying committee members when getting advice from legal counsel, and legal counsel's responsibility to reply to the whole board on his answers. And then policy 2410 with the development, we are going to have to go back through all of our policies and update them when we reference Chief Communications Officer and Chief Equity Officer. So I wanted to add those two to the agenda. I think 5 minutes will be fine.
Is that a motion?
Yes. And the motion would be to add some discussion on policy committee protocol.
All right. Do I hear a second?
I'd appreciate it if you'd second it as the chair.
It's difficult to discuss something I haven't had time to sit and look through. It is something that I would consider talking about at the next meeting.
Which will be in August, right?
Correct.
Okay, then I'd like to make another motion that I would like to revisit policy 7300 and 3200 and 5210. I have in front of you all a color-coded question about some of the clarity that we don't have in these policies, and we have our principal representative here, and believe that we should extend the courtesy to our principal reps to weigh in on some of the vagueness and the problems that all staff have raised to us.
I'd just like to note that there will be some discussion, at least I've requested for this to be discussed at our next regular board meeting. So,
Okay, so that goes back to my point that two of our stakeholders and advisors aren't allowed to speak at those meetings. So so they're here now, and so would like to go over those. And as reviewing some of our other policies that we're going through, specifically policy 4240, child abuse and related threats, it says that we have to be able to display posted, visible, high-traffic areas, some information about that, and that's not on our list. And then if you look on policy 5210 on the back, we have refused 2 times at my request to include school-related materials. Mr. Anderson brought this kind of stuff up, and school-related groups, which are our PTAs, PTOs, teachers and principals organizations, and our booster clubs. So we do have a contradiction in what we're saying, bless you, in 7300 and 3200 and policy 4240 and 5210. And I believe that we're going to get ourselves into a little bit of trouble if somebody makes a complaint about either, any of these policies, because we're going to have 2 policies to conflict. So maybe this is one that we hold off until our new legal counsel, is on board and can give us, fresh advice on that. But I'm just concerned that we are leaving out our principal's opportunity to weigh in if we're doing it at a board meeting.
All right, so that was a motion to add 7,300, 3,200, 5,210. Is there a second? Hearing none, back to the original motion to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
That passes 2-1. Moving on to the minutes, I make a motion we approve the minutes.
Second, with discussion.
Go ahead, Ms. Piper.
I would like to see some of the confusion in item A and item B under policy updates, number 4. Just combine the 2 of them. So it would read something like A-B, policy 3200, selection of instructional materials, and policy 7300, staff responsibilities, and then all of that dialogue one time, because it's somewhat confusing when you try to read it, even though I was there. So if anyone coming back in the future reading it, it would probably be helpful to do it that way. So we could pass it that way, or we could hold it and change it and look at it next time. Either way, I don't care.
Yeah, I would like to hold it and change it so we have a chance to read it, and also just wanted to make a note with all of the ones that happened after I left the meeting. I don't know what time it was that I left the meeting, but I do know that I wasn't there to discuss any of the 2200 ones, and so anything that says that there's a vote of 3-0 is erroneous because I wasn't there, and I can't remember, and I didn't pay that close of attention when I was going back to review it, if I was there for 3200 or not. But I think we should hold these and kind of take a little bit of a look, because these are very confusing. I wasn't there, tried to watch, and
I do see there's some that are 2-0, but I do see a couple that are 3.
yeah, and I wasn't there
do
for,
see that.
for any of it, so.
So we want to hold this? Is there a?
Yes, I'll make the motion that we make those changes that I suggested so we can read them on the page and see if they're coherent. And then look at the dates, look at the votes to make sure they're correct, and then bring them back at the next meeting.
So the motion was just to bring them back at the next meeting, not to make any changes right now.
No, my motion was to make the changes that I suggested for A and B, so we can see them in writing, so we can look at them and see if they're coherent, if they make sense at that point. Plus, bring the whole thing back with that, so we can read it.
Also fixing those votes.
And fixing the votes.
All right, so we're not approving the minutes.
Correct.
Okay, all right, just making sure that the motion is to send the minutes back, and then we will review them
revision.
next time.
Yes.
And we can offer our suggestions to you and Ms. Gadetsky at this time.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 3-0. All right, getting right into some of our policies. Policy 2230, the board sent this back so that we could add a little summary statement regarding the safety committee. I went back and listened to feedback when we had that discussion back in April, and wrote down some of the concepts that the board had expressed concern with and wanted to address for the safety committee. Ms. Craybill has also given some feedback. So I kind of wanted to just open it up for discussion to how, if we wanted to adjust, adapt, edit, how we wanted to deal with adding that paragraph.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I have clarity? I see this one, who authored that?
So the original, all of the black, that one is mine. The red is the edits that Ms. Craybill had.
Yeah, and I
Do
think,
you have a copy of that we can post? Ms. Craybill, did you,
I did send that to Pat, and she gave us a copy of it,
she gave us a paper copy.
but maybe she can post it
Is
so
it
that
possible to post it?
people around can look at it.
So.
Yes, that has the track changes in it?
Yes.
That's what it is, it's a Word document. Should have track changes.
So there were a few, and there were
This is it right here.
Yeah, there were some that, there were some things that were not part of that also that you had made the adjustments for that I had not included.
Oh, so
For
you can't
renumbering.
you can't see the track changes
Yeah,
in
you
there.
can't see the red, but the paper will show the red. So the edits were removing that first, there was a word student there, that was removed. There was another student behavior, the word student was added to student behavior.
Line 2.
In line 2. Let's see.
I put a question mark after accountability. If you want me to go through and
Absolutely.
say.
Go for it.
So the question mark I put there, when I was listening, I don't know what accountability, I think we need to define that if we're going to keep that in there. And then if you move down to 1, 2, 3, fourth line, right after ACEs, staff and student training and reporting requirements, those are listed in the definitions that Mr. Wildeboer gave us in an email. And then if you come down, you didn't have anything in your, go up a little bit, Anita, I'm sorry. Or like go back. Keep going. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
There you
Okay.
go. Perfect.
So you did not have most of the second paragraph. So I was just using, I changed the word so they would be, instead of composed of, is comprised of, so that it was the same language we were using for other committees.
Oh, I had gone directly to the other ones. And
Yeah,
it
so did
said
I.
Composed of.
Okay.
So,
Well,
or
it doesn't
some of
matter.
them.
Composed,
Anyway.
comprised, doesn't matter. Of all 7 board members, and we'll have 3 subcommittees to separately address mental health, student behavior, and facilities and traffic. Additional members of the safety committee and subcommittees include the superintendent appointed subject matter expert, like we have with all other committees, board standing committees, and staff members from at least the operations, student support services, and human resources department, because they are the ones that address specifically items that we have in the first paragraph, as well as school and parent representatives from each grade level, elementary, middle, and high school. I cannot see us having a safety committee where we don't involve the schools, and we don't involve the parents. And community is probably going to be outraged if they're not included as well. But I think at a minimum, we have to put people on the safety committee that have knowledge of the policies and knowledge of the procedures and knowledge of the issues that are occurring in our school buildings and on our campuses.
So while I agree with some of that, I remember in the discussion that the board, as a majority, had decided that it was primarily the board, and we were not going to be involving parents, community members, things like that, because of the, I can't remember the exact rationale behind it, but I know that we had discussed it only being the 7 of us on these committees. I'd like to ask Ms. Bradford for her feedback.
because I'm trying to recall what we had discussed.
I was the person who brought this motion forward to have a safety committee, and the idea that we had discussed was lean and mean, just the board members. I can support the other changes in here, but not that new paragraph, 4 lines. I can't support it at all. It substantially changes what we decided the safety committee would be, and I'm totally against it. It defeats the purpose of having subcommittees when you make them that large. Now you have a giant committee, and then you have a giant subcommittee. You have 3 giant subcommittees. That wasn't the purpose. That wasn't what we were trying to do. We want to interview team members. We want to interview people from the public, but we want to operate as 3 separate subcommittees that report back to the board.
Oh, it's one of our visitors from next door. It's a student.
Yeah. We can keep going.
So, Madam Chair, I actually move that we adopt this as it's written, taking out 1, 2, 3, 4, the last 4 lines in the second paragraph under 4, and adopt the rest of it.
If I might, I would like to make a friendly amendment, I believe. They don't exist.
Go ahead.
I like all the way up to, I like the part that says additional members of the safety committee and subcommittees include a superintendent appointed subject matter expert and staff members from at least the operations, student support services, and human resources department. And that's where I would end that paragraph.
And I would respectfully disagree. The idea of having subcommittees is they can meet without all of this grandeur, and you go adding all those people, you're going to have all this grandeur. Every time we have a subcommittee meeting of times 3, it's just going to bog it down to where nothing gets done.
Ms. Mason?
Yes.
Okay, so I listened, we never voted on that. So we never voted, so we can all say whatever we want about the board decided, because we did not. At the last meeting, Mr. Wildeboer said specifically that when I had safety teams at my school, I always included parents and staff. So, and those were words straight out of the video. And so for us to exclude that, and the other reason that I think that's important is if we have subcommittees with just 2 people on them, and one person is not at that meeting, somebody could be giving a report that says our subcommittee met and discussed, when in fact our subcommittee did not meet and discuss. And then, so I think that if we're talking about safety, then we need to be all-inclusive. And I would like to hear, if we may, from our principal representatives here on their thoughts about school safety, if that is permissible.
That is fine.
I think if you want to talk about school safety, the best way of talking about school safety is to be respectful to people who actually work in schools. I think that's the only way you're going to have an honest, open conversation about what is actually happening.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Bradford.
That was actually the plan, that the safety committees would sit down with groups of you and discuss it the same way we've had other discussions. That's actually the plan, and talk to law enforcement and talk to, each one of us have a different assigned topic, if you will, a strategic number 1 thing came from the chair, but that was the plan. That's in what we've done. It exists now. You don't need to get the policy that, and really what we're doing is we're adding language under board committees to just define what the safety committee is. We've already created the safety committee. The majority will of the board was to create a safety committee, and we've done that. And right now, what we're trying to do is control it down to the nth degree so that it goes a certain way. And that wasn't the will of the board. The will of the board established the safety committee. The subcommittees, we've met one time. A lot of people were out of town. A lot of people were torn. So we haven't put a whole lot of focus into it. Over the summer, we should get, and we will come and talk to you. We will have meetings with you. But we won't do it with all of this wonderful paraphernalia going on that holds the balloon up. So then we'll report back to the larger group And then the larger group can make a decision on what's the will of those 7.
So then the safety subcommittee has subcommittees within the subcommittee?
No. The committee has 3 subcommittees,
Okay.
Each with just the 2 people.
2 or 3.
2 or 3, yes. And each, that gave us 3 different lanes to go after first, so that when we came back, and actually the idea was that you would have 4 lanes. 1 lane, 2 lane, 3 lanes, and then everybody shared the larger 4th lane. And then when we come back together, we'd have all that information coming. And each group is interviewing different people. So we're actually making it a larger pie.
But I think sometimes when, like, if you two are the subcommittee for whatever the topic is with safety, and you come and talk to the 2 of us, and then we bring what we have to say back to the full board, as the full board is on the safety committee, there may be follow-up questions or clarification or clarity that's needed that you won't be able to provide because it may not have come up during that exchange or interaction.
But
I think that would happen regardless.
Yeah,
to
I
be quite
agree.
honest.
I agree. I think this is a looser thing than what you're maybe considering it. It's not like we meet with you and then we come back and we change something. It's a much more investigative, gathering information, bringing all options to the board. I mean, we can't reinvent the wheel. We're not going to create more school safety overnight. We're going to look at what other boards are doing, what other counties are doing, what schools are doing what and what's working, and bring that together as information. And if questions, and you're welcome to come. I mean, obviously, and maybe when we have, I can't speak for the board, but maybe when we have the larger meetings, we can have certain people come and talk to us at that point. But this is an ongoing process. It's not a quickie by any means.
All right, going back to Ms. Graybill, go ahead.
So we have not, as a whole board, sat down and talked about the intent of this. What I'm hearing Ms. Bradford say is that she's explaining her intent and not the whole entire board's intent. And I am very concerned that if we do not include our stakeholders, that we are going to get back to policy 7300 and 3200-esque, where we impose our thoughts onto the district when we are not the professionals in those areas. And what is wrong with getting group feedback? I'm not talking about having a whole bunch of people here. It's like 4 extra people, a subject matter expert and maybe 2 people from each grade level. And if we want to put middle and high as secondary, we can. But we all know that middle school issues and high school issues are different where safety is concerned. And I liken this to, let's say, our curriculum committee, that is a large committee, and we get input from all the different sub-departments that go into curriculum and instruction. And so if we value curriculum that way, why wouldn't we value safety in that way and want to get as many inputs together in a conversation and not us interviewing? Because by us being interviewers, it already puts us at this level of authority that is imposing and intimidating. When we want to be collaborative and we want for our district professionals to explain issues like traffic. Mr. Anderson has brought together over the years several focus groups where we talk about traffic at Laney High School and Trask High School. And parents have input. Parents have ideas. Community members have ideas with that. So why are we going to be purposely excluding them? Because we think we know more? Because it was our intent that we never voted on what this means? I mean, this is probably one of the most important committees that we have put together, even though we already have several layers of safety committees. Each school has a safety committee, the district has a safety committee, the district has a safety management committee, so that none of us go to except me. And so if we would go to some of the other things out there, we wouldn't have to be doing so much interviewing, and fact-finding and getting to the bottom of, kind of stuff. I just really think it's bad if we don't include them, and it won't be getting cumbersome. The only cumbersome thing is if somebody gets an idea that they like, they go make a phone call, and then they come back with this came from a committee, so therefore I don't need a second kind of thing. Subcommittees have to put forth good information to the whole safety committee. And then at that point, we can do voting. But to exclude people purposely because we think we know more, that is just wrong.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
May I
Ms.
correct
Bradford.
an inaccuracy? I am the board liaison for the curriculum committee. I am not on the curriculum committee. I don't make decisions. I don't lead the meetings. I am the liaison to the curriculum committee that meets 4 times a year.
I will strike that example. I'll think of a better one.
That's okay.
So coming back to my amendment, is there?
Can we ask Mr. Hall if he's got a comment? Do you have any comments, or did Ms. May explain it well enough? Principal of the year who has direct access to all principals.
I just will echo what Ms. May said, and I'm reading the first paragraph that mentions student safety, or we took out student, but safety issues, school district, but not limited to student behavior, student discipline, attendance, traffic safety, having at least some form of representative of the people that are working with all of those things on a daily basis doesn't make sense.
Thank you, both.
Going back to my amendment, is there a second? Because we never got a second. Hearing none, going to Ms. Bradford's motion. Is there a second? I will second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Could you read the motion again so I know
Motion
clearly what
was-
I'm
Ms.
voting on?
Bradford, can you?
Certainly. I move that we accept the language changes. Student, striking the student in the first line, adding student in the second line, striking accountability, adding in staff and student training and reporting requirements. And then in the second paragraph, the committee is comprised, we keep comprised, we lose composed, and will have, and then strike everything else that's in red there, keeping everything else in the policy. Ms. Gadesky, is that followable? Thank you.
So can I have a point of clarity on that? So we're saying that we don't want a subject matter expert.
I'm saying we strike the last 4 lines in that paragraph.
We're saying we don't want a subject matter expert? Is that what we're saying? Can you just say yes or no on that?
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Passes 2-1. Moving on to policy.
Oh, Miss, before we move on, the Universal Interest Committee, the interest form should have gone along with that. We did talk about that specifically at the meeting, and it was voted on 3-2 to add safety committee to the last box, and so I added that in. And Ms. Kadetsky gave us that. So you have safety committee and then which subcommittee. So we had agreed and voted on that we would add that on the fly from the dais, and that we would come back to it if we decided that the safety committee was indeed not worthy of being on a board standing committee universal application form. So it needs to go on until we take it off, because that's what we voted on.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Ms. Bradford.
I'm curious, under number 7, Head Start Board of Directors.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Does that change with what's going on with Head Start, or does that go into limbo? What's going on with that? Can,
It shouldn't change.
No, and right now, we are still not ready to give an update. Hopefully, we'll have something for you on Tuesday. I really want to wait for some official notification, and we're hoping to be able to give a report on Tuesday, but we want that official notification. But we don't think it will change, but I want to have that official notification.
I mean, would this, in a worst-case scenario there, would this language then need to come back and be changed? Or would it just stand the way it is?
Can I look at that and get back with you?
That's why I put when applicable, because if we don't have a Head Start program, then we don't need a policy for it. And then moving on down to E5, we need to have a hyperlink in our policy for the universal, so those changes do need to also be added to the, or at least E5 needs to be added to the board, to our discussion and our vote.
Just for clarification, Ms. Bradford, when you made the motion, was that including those changes as well? Or no? Was that just
Actually, no, I was
related?
just talking about that one piece.
So I'll make a motion that in policy 2230, that we, in section E5, we provide a hyperlink for the universal committee application form, including the safety committee and subcommittee box under board standing committees.
Madam Chair, point of clarity.
Yes, ma'am.
If we add safety committee to board standing committees, remind me, because I can't remember right now, does that mean that the public thinks that they can apply for that committee and not?
This is a
So this is an interest form.
Correct.
But is this not alerting the public that these are the committees that they can make application to be a part of?
That's why I'm a little puzzled. I don't recall that vote.
Do you want me to play it back up? I just listened before we came.
It's fine. I will go back and listen to it myself later.
And we voted that we would put it on the form until such time as we decided not to put it on the form. Kind of like we decided to take the book out of the classroom until
ma'am,
such time as we
we're
come
not
back.
doing
No,
that.
we have to be consistent. We can't just pick and choose the things that we want to.
We're not doing that today. So,
Madam Chair, I would prefer to pass this without the safety committee there.
We cannot, because we voted on it at the last board meeting.
all right, well,
Will of the board,
we can send
3
it
to
the
2.
board. Okay, so the motion right now on the table is to make the changes that were listed by Ms. Craybill to, remind that.
E5, provide a hyperlink to the universal committee interest form. It shouldn't say application, it should say interest form.
All right, so is there a second? All right, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 3-2.
And just for clarity, we are hyperlinking to the form that has safety committee and subcommittees on it.
That was the motion, so yes. Moving on to policy 3400. Dr. Faison, did you want to address, well, we'll do 3400. Go ahead.
So 3400 is in reference to, if you will recall, we updated the K2 report card a couple of months back. So we are asking to update just a few words and language in policy 3400 to align with that. And that would be mastered proficiency, progressing towards proficiency, beginning stages of development, and just changing the language of the report card. So that is the changes for 3400. So we are asking to do that to align with the K2 report card.
And can I ask, is that related to, were those related to state?
No. So if you recall, we, our teachers actually asked if we would align, do some changes with our K-2 report card. It was, and the principals probably could speak to that, because this is something that they and the teachers have been asking for, I know since I've arrived in the district. You guys want to talk about the K-2 report card and the need for the changes in that?
This has been a subject that I feel like teachers have been talking about for a long time. Because you ask any K-2 teacher, and that is their least favorite time of the year. But I think just getting it to where, and my school was actually one of the ones that piloted this for the last 9 weeks for this year, and teachers were talking about how they went from spending hours and hours really getting the same data inputted for the parents in a much shorter amount of time. And just, in reading this language, the clarity to me comes in, rather than saying the child needs more development. They're going to get there. They're just, they are, or rather than saying they're performing well below, you're saying they just need more development, and they are going to get there. They're progressing towards proficiency, or they're beginning stages of development. So the language and making it a little more parent-friendly, I think is as much a part of the revision to the report card, just because there was so much language on the former one that the new one really makes it so that they're really just looking at what's relevant at that point in time.
And can I ask, did you get any feedback from parents as far as the language, if they felt like it was more clear?
On the new one?
Yeah.
So it just got mailed, and so they're like, it's like just arriving, but that is the plan, is to reach out. Yep.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Crawford.
I'm not sure who this is for, but it's one of you or both of you. But I just want to be sure. Number 4, master proficiency. That's pretty clear. But then number 3, meets grade level expectations. As a parent, that's pretty clear. Progressing towards proficiency has sort of a different meaning. And I just want to make sure it's not watering down number 3. I know we're talking about little people, but if they don't have it by the time they're in 3rd grade, then you've got your challenges. Progressing towards grade level expectations, that's pretty clear. Beginning stages of development, seems like it waters it down just slightly. Needs more development, that's a negative. The other one says, performing well below grade level expectations is even more negative. So I just want to make sure that somebody has looked at this to see that it's not weakening our standard, lowering our expectations, just so that the parents can read it more easily and teachers have a better time preparing it, and we're not shorting the kids in the process.
What it did, if you look at it, we went from 3 measurements to 4. So it actually allowed the student to have, the parents and the students to have a clearer measurement. So it didn't weaker the level or water anything down. It actually allowed us to measure the students' progress clearer. Because with the 3 standards, you had to put them in 3 buckets. So this way, we actually could have, I'm going to say again, buckets. So you had a clearer way to measure students. So you had 4 different pots to actually explain where they were. So it's not anything about watering anything down. You actually had different language and different steps to give where they were. I don't know if you want to add to that, but it really, you can really explain to parents in a clearer format of where they are in that moment in time.
Well, and speaking as a former 3rd grade teacher, the shift in the former K2, like the 3, 2, and 1, they get to 3rd grade, it's the first time they're getting an A, a B, or C.
Yeah.
When really the former scale, a 3 could be they're there or they're above. So it really, like, their kid could have made 3s 1st and 2nd grade, but then they're making a B, and the parent's like, they should be making an A. Whereas this, to me, is more reflective of what they're going to transition to in upper grades.
It does seem to me 4 and 1 are actually tougher, because you either made it, or you need more help. And then the 2 in the middle just seem just to be like, almost like just a little softer. So I'm okay with it. I just wanted those answers.
Yeah.
I like 4 and I like 1. I'm a little concerned about 3 and 2, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
See what the parent input is. So Madam Chair, I move that we accept this as changed.
And I will second that. Any other questions, discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 3-0. Policy 3410.
Okay. All right. So 3410 is just some brief, quick language change. And this is coming from our CTE department. And this is to make sure that we include all of our CTE. This is for all of high school testing, but with adding proof of learning, this makes it so we are including our mastery that we have and our credential testing. So we changed it from state assessments to proof of learning. And that way, when we have credential testing, that is incorporated as well.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept policy 3410 as changed.
And I will second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, sorry.
Those opposed? Passes 3-0. And I believe this is the last one for you for the moment.
Yes.
3440.
And this was actually brought up by our teachers and then taken to the curriculum committee. And this is to recognize our A and B honor roll. So this is a change that says that students in grades 3 through 12 will be recognized for A honor roll. If they have all A's, they will receive A honor roll. And if they have all A's and B's, they will receive A and B honor roll.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept policy 3440 as written. Congratulations.
And I will second that. Any further discussion?
Yeah, so I am not opposed to the discussion. I heard it at the curriculum committee. I would like to make just a formatting change, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So if we strike out the letter A and say, make it the next paragraph, students in grades 3 through 12 for the AB honor roll, qualify for the AB honor roll, and leave everything the same, because we've struck out B, and normally if you have an A, then that means a B should be coming. So just wanted to get some proofreading, editing skills in there.
Yep.
So it didn't change the words, just format.
Is there a motion? There's already a motion on the table to approve as is. Did you want to make it?
I would make a motion that we make the formatting change to strike out the letter A and insert those words from letter A after students.
Second that.
So it would just start with grades 3 through 5 -12.
No, it says
Students.
students, grades 3 through 12, qualify for the A honor roll if they earn. All we're doing is taking out the heading of letter A and putting it into the next sentence. Everything else stays the same.
All right, so on that amendment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
We need to, did I get a second?
Did I second? Or did you
I
second?
did-
There
Okay.
you go. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 3-0. And then for the full, I'm going to make a motion to pass this on to the board as amended. All those in, do I have a second?
We still have a motion and a second on the floor to pass it. So we need to vote on that.
That.
Maybe defeat that and then make yours. But we still have a, Mr. Vogel, are you there?
I think that was an amendment, so I think that.
Yes.
Don't we still have to vote on the main motion, even though we passed the amendment?
We're talking about 3440?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, yes.
Okay, so the main motion was to pass it as is.
Maybe she can modify hers to say as amended.
I would,
Let's just vote.
Yeah, let's just not do Robert's Rules of Order like this time.
Okay.
No, I can't let it go because
I
we do it
understand.
all the
I'm
time.
trying to-
I know you are, so I'm just offering a suggestion, and that our board attorney could possibly weigh in on and tell us how to do this.
So we're going to vote on the original motion, and then we will make another motion. So the original motion was to pass this on to the board without any changes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed?
No.
That fails, 0-3. Now, I will make a motion to move this policy with the changes to the board.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 3-0. Moving on to the policy amendments from NCFPA. So 40, 40, and 7310. There were what appears to be some minor edits on page 94 and some removal of some very large paragraphs, which originally I was concerned about, but is addressed in later policies. I believe if this was anybody, it would be Dr. Barnes' representative. So if there's any questions anybody has. Ms. Bradford, do you have any?
It's so small right now, I can't read it. I read it on my computer, and I made a check mark by it, so I was happy with it. So I move that we approve policy 4040, 7310 as amended here.
Then I will second that. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 3. Next policy is a new policy. So this is 4140. It pertains to foreign exchange students. So this is everything is new. So I am unsure of who, I'm guessing Ms. Farnham would be the individual to ask any questions of. So if anybody has any questions, it's great.
So I was reading through here and wondering, do we have to make any mention of the foreign exchange student advisor who's appointed, or somebody gets, or the host family gets access to their Power School so that they can follow along with grades and such?
No, we have a process for all of that.
And so where would I find that? And shouldn't we reference it in here?
No, so because they are listed as visiting students, we follow the entire process for how we do that. So it's not in policy, and sometimes that's going to be different based on our student information system. So I can provide that to you if you're interested, but
No, I just
it
was
wouldn't need to
curious
be in policy.
how the foreign exchange student advisor keeps up.
And I don't have the details on that, but I can provide that if you're interested.
Okay, maybe just in the board packet, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Ms. Farnham, would you just run through it, kind of, the highlights of what you see this is? Just to give us, because it's brand new and we've never seen this before, and I just need some comfort, please.
Oh, okay, so I am not sure the root of the reason for the policy as it comes from the School Board Association, so I didn't have that communication. However, we do have a process for allowing foreign exchange students to participate in our school district. So we have a foreign exchange liaison that works with the entities, the agencies that provide them, basically the host families, and then we communicate back and forth with them on the appropriateness of what type of school assignment, what type of enrollment works for us as well.
Is there anything here that causes you any concern?
No.
And is this just like compatible with what we're already doing?
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Mason, I can't find quickly the update sheet, whatever it's called, that says why they did it, because in there, I mean, I don't have a problem with this, because I know that we already are doing it,
Yeah, I don't have any concerns with
Yeah,
it.
but I was just, I mean, it would say in there, you know, why they came up with it, if you have that.
It simply says creates a new policy to address the admission of foreign exchange students with J1 visa status.
Okay, it's probably
And
the
it's
visa status.
It's a recommendation.
It's an
But it's for
optional.
all counties, and maybe they don't have the strength of the policies that we already have in place. So that seems to be logical. So, Madam Chair, I move that we adopt policy change 4140 to move it to the board. It goes as a first reading, does it not?
Correct.
Yes.
And I will second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 3-0. Next, we have policy 4240 and 7312, child abuse and related threats to child safety.
And this one's not new, is it?
This one is not new. There were some edits on page 3 of 5.
Oh, yeah.
And that also, I noticed, maybe that was the section that I noticed is addressed in one of the other policies that is coming up.
Yeah, and is there anyone here that can, do you want to talk to this? Because it seems to me this and the next one, they strengthen what we're doing, and we've had so much outcry from the public about this that it's just awesome. So can you address it for us?
Sure. I mean, I can address it from a perspective of it is just further defining our reporting requirements. Of course, we have existing policy that turns from being by the state board of education, so this is just as identifying under these specific conditions our local board of education.
So, Madam Chair, I move that we move this policy 4240/7312 forward to the board.
I will second that. Any further discussion? Ms. Craven?
In section H, as I pointed out before, it says that we are required to have a display posted in visible high-traffic areas through each secondary school, and I'm wondering where in our policy 7300 and 3200 this fits in.
Madam Chair, I'm comfortable with the way it's written.
I have a question that I think we need to discuss. So the person who proposed this policy change, perhaps she could weigh in on where she thinks it fits.
Did you want to address it?
No. I call the question.
All right.
What about my question? Where,
She's asked, she has,
okay, so are we going to have another policy that contradicts a policy? So tell me where it fits in so that I can feel comfortable. Perhaps our esteemed legal counsel can weigh in on that.
Mr. Vogel, would you like to weigh in on that?
Madam Chair, I'd be happy to. I would say that the school district would read its policies together. And you'd have one policy that talks about certain displays and this policy that talks about a certain display. Together, those displays can be provided in the schools.
So
Thank you.
if a complaint is filed by a parent, or either to us directly or to the Office of OCR, then which policy would we use to defend ourselves? Would we defend it with policy 7300 and 2300, or would we defend it with policy 4240?
Madam Chair, from the board,
I have a question to our legal counsel, and I am allowed to ask those.
So the point of order does take precedence over everything. What was your point of order, ma'am?
I call the question. Move to the vote.
A point of order, you can't call the question, we have to vote to call the question if we're going through Robert's Rules of Orders,
That's what we're trying to
Ms.
do.
Expert. No, I want this clarified because we're doing it again. We've already done this with 5200. This one states clearly that we have to display it, and this policy is saying we cannot. So what is a principal to do?
I believe Mr. Vogel answered that question.
No, he didn't. He said we could pick whatever policy we want. you want to say it again, Mr. Vogel? Because perhaps
Mr. Vogel,
I wasn't
could you
listening.
please repeat your answer?
I think my answer was that this policy would require a display. Another policy limits certain displays. And these policies can be read together in a way that enables educators to display what policies require or don't require.
Okay. All right.
It's not your call, Ms. Bradford. Go ahead and gavel me. Just go ahead and get it over with.
All those in favor of moving 4240, 7312 to the board signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That passes 3-0.
Is there such a thing as moving it forward with prejudice? Okay.
Policy 4270, 6145. Does anybody have any? Well, I'm going to make a motion to move that to the board. There were some changes to some verbiage on page 1 and 2, and then there was a change to some citing of legal references and other resources on page 3. So I move that we send this to the board. Your second. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That passes 3. Moving on to, this is another new policy, 5020, 6128, and 7268. Emergency administration of, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, naloxone? Thank you.
Commonly known as nothing.
That's what I figured it was. Would that be under your purview, Ms. Farnham? My biggest concern with this was, and I understand the reasoning, but the insecure but unlocked and easily accessible locations, that was my concern with it. Can you speak to your thoughts on this particular?
So not being a medical provider, I'll start with that. It is my understanding that the response is similar to how we need accessibility to an AED, and that if someone errantly provides Narcan to someone, then it's not going to be as harmful as it would have been to neglect the provision of Narcan. And that's just the direction that we've gotten from our Health and Human Services partners that work in our schools. So that in and of itself does not concern me. It would concern me to have it locked and difficult to access in a moment's notice when this has had to be used in our buildings.
So how often has this had to be used?
It is not routine by any means, but on occasion it has, I would say maybe 2 to 3 times a year,
School-wide,
district-wide.
district-wide, that's what I meant, sorry. Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Becker.
Can we ask Mr. Vogel if he's read this, and does this keep us safe?
Mr. Vogel, does this particular policy, 5023, 6128, 7268, keep us safer? What are your thoughts on this particular policy legally?
I don't have an issue with this policy.
Madam Chair, I move that we
Can I ask a point of clarification?
make this.
Our legal counsel gets these policies before the policy, so to ask the question, has he read it, should be a moot point, right?
I think that there was just concern that it was.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, well, I'm doing that just also for the benefit of our visiting person.
Madam Chair, just
Yes,
a
ma'am.
point of order. I didn't ask if he read it, I asked if he had any legal issues with it. Okay, thank you. I move that we move policy 5023, 6128, 7268 forward for a first reading to the board.
And I will second that. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 3-0.
This is
Next is 6125. administering medicine to students. There was some edits on page 2 regarding procedures for medication administration, and some new or edited resources that were added. And I would make a motion to move this on to the board.
And I will second it with some discussion.
Discussion.
Have you guys read this one? You're looking at page 58 in your package, 2 of 6 in this particular policy. It just, there's some language that I'd never seen before, and so I just, you guys are doing it. Does that work? Look at B.
Can I make a clarification? The main point of the changes here are changes in the agency that oversees the creation of the school health program manual. But we do follow the school health program manual in all of this process.
Thank you. All right, Madam Chair, I move that this, okay, second. Let's hear it.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 3-0. Next policy is 7130. And that one had, that was the passage that added some of the verbiage that was removed from previous passages related to reporting misconduct, and also cited additional legal references.
And Madam Chair, I move that we send this on, policy 7130, with the encouragement of the public to read F, reporting misconduct. It's really important, and we're adding this to our policies. I think it will help us in the future keep from having, I think it will help us in the future. So I move that we move it on to the board.
And I will second that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 3-0. 8340. So this was the addition of, it appears, liability coverage, and Ms. Sutton, would you speak to that?
So it's just some wording changes. It didn't change the policy itself, so I have no recommendation for change.
All right, then I move that we move this on to the board.
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
Yeah. In reading it, it says we'll maintain this insurance, but right now we're in a sort of an insurance quandary, whether we'll have some of our insurances going forward. So my thought was to hold it to see if we can actually have insurance. But if you're saying it's just a housekeeping thing with some wording changes, which I see, but if I don't know I can have something, why would I pass a policy that talks about it? And right now, we don't know.
Annually, we would bring the insurance, so we have insurance coverage right now. The concern was the insurance coming up for renewal in the upcoming year, that there might be an issue with being able to afford at the same level of insurance that we currently have. So I don't think this would prevent us, passing this policy would prevent us from not being able, like, we could still purchase less insurance than what we had this year if we couldn't afford the same level, or to make different decisions on our insurance policies when they come up for renewal. This is just saying that we're going to have the appropriate coverage in place. If the board feels like we don't need adequate insurance to cover our assets, and maybe you would need to change the policy, but I don't think we're there at this point until we know the cost of the policy.
I'm not talking directly, I'm talking about our liability insurance with Liberty.
Yes.
They're refusing to cover us now. And that's in limbo. Will we be able to go forward with them? And this says, the first sentence is the board will maintain insurance or other liability coverage. So
I think it's
I'm just
two
concerned
different
about that.
things. This is talking about our
premium payments on our insurance policies, and I think what you're referring to is settlements, like the amount that the insurance is willing to pay on claims.
No. If our insurance company doesn't cover us for liability, then it wouldn't make sense to continue to pay them premiums if they refuse to cover us.
We have liability coverage currently.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes, Mr. Vogel.
I think this policy is intended to address the fact that the board will maintain an insurance policy or other liability coverage, not guarantee that in every particular case the insurance company will find that we are covered under the policy. It just requires us to maintain a policy or other type of liability coverage.
Right. So I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor of moving this 8340 onto the board, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes. 3. Moving on to 8510. Ms. Sutton, this is all about you. I know that in the past we had talked about, and I know we're going to be talking about this in a little bit, but fund balance percentage. We had talked about how, and would this be where we would want to add that verbiage, or is that a different policy?
That is up to the board. I believe normally it's a separate policy and not included in this policy. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Well, let me make a motion to move this onto the board as amended. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, discussion. Ms. Bradford.
What's the point in these deletions?
What's the point in what?
The deletions.
You know, for
I think that was
example,
NCS.
under B, duties.
You can read it in the
says
book.
the school finance officer shall be responsible to the superintendent for, but it's deleting that. It's
I don't have the
deleting-
notes from School Board Association, but I think Ms. Mason
Yeah.
has that. I can guess as to why, but I think it's probably best for her to read her comment.
So according to the NCSBA, it says it updates the duties of the school finance officer based on information in the state board of education policy. And then adds a new section C about continuing professional education, and then updates the legal references and from. So those were the changes.
And I would just say, once again, this is a little more detailed than what we have before, but it's things that I've been doing. The only item that caught me a little off guard, which I think is a good thing, is number 10 that talks about creating, analyze the financial, personnel, and student data. And so I always get a copy of the student data information and look at that incorporation when we're planning for budget and talking about, our strategic goal related to academics. But that was interesting. I hadn't seen that before, but I think it just provides more detail than what we had in the policy prior.
I did have a question. On number 21, it says ensuring the quality of fiscal operations of the individual schools through periodic audit reviews of fiscal records and ensuring corrective action is taken as necessary. This is already happening, and how often is this happening?
Yes, that's currently happening. We have an internal auditor that does that for us, and she audits every school at least once a year.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, this is not a change, but it's worth noting. Number 12, preparing and filing a statement of the financial condition of the school system when requested by the Board of Education or the county commissioners, but only if such a request is in writing and copied to the superintendent. So that really limits us hounding our chief financial officer for information individually as board members. So I just wanted to call that out, is that we are required to write it and copy the superintendent. We can't just ask for it and expect it.
Any of moving 8510 to the board signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to say no.
Passes 2-1. And the last policy on the schedule is 5071 and 7351, electronically stored information retention. And that was change of,
It's just a legal reference.
We move policy 5071, 7351 forward to the board.
any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 3-1. Okay, so as for right now, I have existing policies for amendment at the next regular meeting with no changes. I have 3400, 3410, 4040/7310, 4240/7312, 4270/6145, 6125, 7130, 8340, 8510, and 5071/7351. Existing policies for amendment with the changes noted, 2230 and 3440. New policies for first reading, I have 4140 and 5020/6128/7268.
And this isn't a policy, but just to make a note, held in committee the minutes from the 521 meeting.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Before we do that, can we talk about the July meeting that you talked briefly off the record on?
Thank you. There, at this point, will not be a policy committee meeting scheduled for July.
And I would like to make a comment on that we have an important policy that is going into effect August 1st, our Title IX policy, and I think we should have some sort of meeting. Ms. Bradford and I could run the meeting in your absence, should we need to do that.
Ms. Bradford, do you have any feedback on that?
Well, we like to do our job, and I'm never in favor of not having meetings. But there is a precedent that we didn't have a July meeting last year. I understand the reason for it, I wasn't involved in my opinion of the past four, but if it's majority of the board, and do it that way, then we can do it. I don't see any point in having meetings where we do something here and then in 2 weeks we do it all over again, 100%. Because we don't like the outcome of what happens here, so I'm fine with skipping the July meeting.
Can we ask Mr. Vogel for an opinion on where he thinks we are for Title IX? I know that the NCSBA will be having something out to us in July so that we're ready for August the 1st, but any complaints that we get between August the 1st and August the 18th or whatever our next board meeting is, will fall under the new guidelines, and we haven't addressed those together. And yeah, and there's a lot of and principals will need to have input on that one too, because it's going to affect reporting at the school level and investigations.
Mr. Vogel, could you give us feedback on that, please?
Unless the Title IX regulation is enjoined by a court, it will go into effect August 1st, whether we have a policy or not. So there'll be requirement to comply as far as OCR enforcement is concerned, whether we have a policy or not. It's always helpful to have a policy ahead of time because that's what our staff refers to. But they can be trained to follow the new regulation without having a policy.
Yes.
Could you repeat the first part of that? There was a little wrinkle, and I didn't quite follow what you said.
Mr. Vogel, could you repeat the first part of that, please?
I think the very first thing I said was, unless it is enjoined by a court, the Title IX regulation will go into effect on August 1st, whether we have a policy in place or not.
Question?
Yes, Ms. Bradford.
Could you explain enjoined by a court, please?
Oh, sorry, enjoined by a court, that means a judge issued an order stating that regulation shall not be implemented by the Education Department in North Carolina. There's no such order. In recent days, there have been court orders that impact 10 other states enjoining the regulation from going into effect, preventing the regulation from going into effect. There's no such order with respect to North Carolina as of today.
And what court would do that?
Which court would do that, Mr. Vogel?
A federal court would do that, that is entertaining a lawsuit that is challenging the legality of the Title IX regulation. There are several such lawsuits pending across the country. A lot of states have joined together in some of these lawsuits to sue the U.S. Department of Education. North Carolina is not a party to any of the lawsuits, but it's possible that a federal judge would issue a nationwide injunction. In other words, an injunction that impacts not just the implementation of the regulation, the states that have sued in that particular court, but would impact every state in the country. That sometimes happens. It hasn't happened as of today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's nothing in the Fourth Circuit that we should be concerned about that somebody's suing and that we can feel comfortable holding off?
Mr. Vogel, could you answer that?
That's a different issue.
But we're governed by the Fourth Circuit. So do you have any knowledge that this is happening in the district, in the circuit that affects us?
Mr. Vogel?
I don't really understand your question, but one way I could answer it is two states that are within the Fourth Circuit have had the Title IX regulation enjoined, that is prohibited from being implemented in those states, Virginia and West Virginia, as a result of a very recent injunction that was entered by a federal judge.
Thank you, that's all I wanted.
All right. So we had a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes, and we are adjourned. Thank you for your time.